Into Bears Weekly, powered by IGS Energy, a Chicago Bears network production. Bears Weekly is brought to you by Advocate Healthcare, Athletico Physical Therapy, CDW, Connie's Pizza, IGS Energy, and Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Jeff Joniak, a.k.a. the Mayor of Bearsville, and his sidekick, Tom the Surfmaster Thayer.
Optimism popping at Hallis Hall after what is being framed as a positive step forward and towards enhancing the offensive and defensive lines for the 2025 season and beyond for your Chicago Bears. Stealthy strikes on the trade market and free agency by General Manager Ryan Poles and his staff, supplementing a promising roster of skill position players now under the care of head coach Ben Johnson. We discussed tonight on Bears Weekly here on ESPN 1000 on the Chicago Bears Radio Network with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer and former Bears quarterback Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio. I'm Jeff Joniak. Good to have you alongside. Coming up on the program, a sit-down with the new Bears center, Drew Dalman. Thanks to our producers tonight, Kendra Smith, Dan Barilli, and Jordan Tredup from the Bears, and the executive producer of the Bears Radio Network, Eric Ostrowski. Good evening, fellas. Tom, Jim, how we feeling? We now have a new-looking roster for the Bears here in 2025.
Well, it's about time we're talking about the offensive line before any other position for the Chicago Bears, because I think if you think of the shortest route to success and winning a division, it's the improvement of the offensive line. And when you look at the statistical performance of the line last year and what these guys bring aboard, they bring years of success. They bring a position changes, systems that they've thrived in. So I'm super excited where the Bears stand before the draft. And I'm not going to ignore the defensive line guys that they brought in, because that brings me a lot of excitement as well. But when you think about what Ben Johnson needs out of an offensive line, this is a great way to start.
Yeah, Jeff, I probably should defer this whole show to Tom, because I'm glad they're attacking the O-line. And Tom will have a lot to say about these guys, but you get two Pro Bowl guards. Obviously, you signed probably one of the best centers in free agency in Drew Dalman, and it needed to happen. Again, I think just since the inception of football, the game is won or lost in the trenches. Yeah, the skill positions got to do their jobs, and can't turn over the football, but a lot of it is predicated on the O-line and the D-line and how they really dominate. That's really going to tip the scale in the course of a 60-minute game. And I think you just look right at Philadelphia, what they did on their O-line, what they've done on their defensive line, and how they dominated the Kansas City Chiefs, who've been somewhat of a dynasty right now. So hopefully good things to come for the Bears, but Ben Johnson has really attacked it hard, and you give Ryan Poles a lot of credit, because young Caleb Williams in this offense, they got to get going here. It's been lackluster for many years, and really I think this is really the kind of where the line is drawn in the sand a little bit, where the Bears start to play some offensive football.
It's interesting that you bring up Philadelphia again, because I keep hearing it, right, from everybody. These are cliches now, right? Copycat league, recency bias. The game has always been about the line of scrimmage, Tom. So the fact that Philadelphia shored it all up over the years, drafting very well, using free agency when necessary, and making moves, trades, whatever, they're movers and shakers. Their lines of scrimmage have been too deep. You give them the credit. They won the Super Bowl. That's not the only reason they won the Super Bowl, obviously, but it's a major reason. But every team's goal, I would think, would be to get the line of scrimmage all zipped up, both sides of the ball. Not always easy to do, Tommy, but it is what football and the foundation of football is all about.
When you talk about the lines being too deep, you have an opportunity here to create depth on the offense and defensive line of the Bears that maybe we haven't seen for quite a while. Still waiting for a couple guys to come into their own, Austin Booker and Amagaji, but we have some veterans, guys that are seasoned enough that are be considered veterans, and then we bring in some talent here that may have the most alpha presence in both rooms, which I think is a key ingredient for the change of culture and the continuity when you talk about the lines of scrimmage.
When you look at Philadelphia, yeah, it's guys that they've drafted, but think about Jordan Mailata, their left tackle. He was developed into a left tackle. This guy's a former rugby player. That needs to happen with Amagaji, who's got all the traits that you're looking for. He's got the arm length. He's going to get stronger. But, that is a mammoth left tackle and who can move, in my opinion, much like Mailata. You know, Mailata was developed into a left tackle. Yeah, they drafted Lane Johnson. Other guys that were there, Cam Jurgens, who took over for Kelsey, is developed into a pretty darn good center. But Amagaji could be a key. Now, whether the Bears draft a young left tackle, but all those guys were developed. Now you invest a lot of money in the center and the two guard positions where you can really pound it up the middle and secure the pocket for young Caleb Williams. You got a strong right tackle and Darnell Wright, who I think everybody feels very good about. Now let's see what the left tackle position holds. You know, and then all five potentially could be solidified. But I think we've seen other teams develop guys, and that's why, to me, Amagaji becomes a very interesting guy to see what he can do from year one, where he didn't do a lot because he was hurt, and now what he can develop into maybe for years to come. Because Mailata did not start right away. It took some time for him, but look what he's doing now as a left tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Dipping back into what Joe Thuney is at the news conferences and the breakout interviews at Hallis Hall this week, and Jonah Jackson, Thuney called it a great fit. I heard Andy Reid on our radio show saying that, we dealt him. It's hard to do, but he wanted to be in Chicago. So it was a special place in his opinion. Jonah Jackson. His first start in the NFL came at right guard against the Bears. In Detroit, he feels that it was the best time of his career under Ben Johnson, who says he calls the game to the strength of your players. So this is where the X's and O's come in. I'm going to start with Tom, go to Jim. What's the X's and O's impact and perspective from your opinion with those three interior offensive linemen and whatever else they're going to do? But let's just focus on the offensive line right now. What's that done for Ben and how he likes to call a game and the Bears offense overall running the football and protecting the quarterback?
Listen, the top 9 teams that had pass win rates associated to the performance of their offensive line all were in the playoffs. And so you got to think of one thing for any offense in the NFL, whether it's a Ben Johnson offense or an Andy Reid offense, you need to have pass protection success. And I think that opens a lot of opportunities for you because you got to say, okay, we're still going to have point of emphasis on running the ball. Then if you're successful on first down running the ball, then it gives you a wide variety of things you can do in the passing game. And to me, because Ben Johnson has always used the play-action passing game as one of the success elements of an offense. To me, as an offensive lineman, listen, play-action pass as much as you want a game. That gives me a chance to be super aggressive and deceptive at the same time. And if you get a player peeking in the backfield on the defense or off balance, you're talking about a big play. And then, listen, the downfield passing game. Incorporating Cole Kmet so you open opportunities for DJ Moore and Roma Dunze. So I think everything goes hand in hand. First of all, running game, then you got the play action passing game, and then you have the threat of a downfield passing game itself.
Yeah, I think at least for me, when I interviewed Ed Oliver, the defensive tackle of the Buffalo Bills, he said the best interior three was in Kansas City. You got Creed Humphrey as the center. You had Trey Smith, who's been given the franchise tag at the right guard for the Kansas City Chiefs, and Joe Thuney was their left guard. He said that was the toughest interior three that he's faced in his NFL career. And that's saying a lot. And Kansas City obviously went in there and beat Buffalo again. Part of it is on the quarterback getting rid of the football, but part of it is these guys give the quarterback room. So even if you say you call the quick game, say the quick passing attack, that's going to be a 3-step drop by the quarterback, and Patrick Mahomes is getting the ball out of his hand in like 2.4 seconds. But those front three give you room. They give you space where you don't feel that pocket is encroaching on you, where that should be 100% completion, in my opinion. If the quarterback's doing his job and the receivers doing their job, but he'll have the protection and the space to get rid of the quick passing game. Tom brought up the run game. That goes hand in hand in what it can do with the play action. But their interior runs should be a lot better. And we'll see how it all comes together at tackle, because you want to attack every single hole from sideline to sideline. So that 8 hole all the way to the right and the 9 hole all the way to the left for the outside, make the defense run in space. But it's all got to be covered, and you got to have tackles that can move. And we'll see if the Bears will be able to do that with their tackles on the outside.
Loved hearing Ben Johnson at the podium on Wednesday talk about what he got at the offensive line. Tough, gritty, dirty. I mean, that is exactly what I'm talking about here. And smart on the interior. Also that, hey, If we got a block that we're particularly good at, we're going to keep going to it. And we're going to keep going to it till you can stop it. That's what I like to hear. We got to take a break. When we come back, we sit down with the Bears' new starting center, the free agent from the Atlanta Falcons, Drew Dalman. It's all coming up next here on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 and the Chicago Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by CDW. People to get it with Tom Thayer and Jim Miller. I'm Jeff Joniak. Drew Dalman, the Bears' new starting center. Great background from Stanford, where in 2020 he was part of an offensive line that did not allow a single sack. Believe it or not, he also didn't allow any pressures for that year. A mechanical engineering major and the son of a former NFL player, Chris Dalman, a San Francisco 49er, an 8-year player, also became his offensive line coach in high school. And his dad won a Super Bowl with the 49ers in 1995. Our sit-down with the starting Bears center from Hallis Hall.
It's awesome. Something I'm really looking forward to understanding fully. I feel like you always hear about it. Someone on the West Coast, you hear about the Bears fans and all that. So being able to experience it firsthand is going to be great.
What have your emotions been like since this signing and the free agent period for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exciting. I feel like it's a big challenge to undertake and a lot of new transitions and all that. And so there's work and some planning that needs to go into the works. But the underlying thing with all of it is I'm happy to do it. I can't wait to get ahead and get here and get to work and all that. So ton of motivation to get this thing going and to improve myself and also just add value to this team.
It is an exciting moment for a player. Because sometimes, you're going to reach free agency and it's your first bite at the apple, so to speak, in that regard. But it's the next stage of your life. And it requires leaving something you're used to and all that. But, it is important. How did you go into this mentally in this free agent period?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great points. I've definitely been a person that kind of just wants to bury their head in the sand and just focus on, football and the daily tasks and that kind of thing. So this was a time when I had to step back and evaluate more of those things and kind of just figure out, what was going to be important for the next phase and all that. And this is a place that was super exciting to me and a place that I think is a great fit and I'm happy to work towards and work to improve. And so I'm really grateful for that.
Your name, and however stuff gets out, your name was linked to the Bears for quite a while, right? Mm-hmm. When free agency opened. And there were reports that you maybe turned down maybe a more lucrative offer to be with the Bears. Mm-hmm. You can tell me that if you want, yes or no, but it clearly means that this is a place you really want to be. Was that all true?
Mm-hmm. I'd probably prefer not to talk about any of that stuff just because, I don't know, my main focus now is just what I'm going to do here, how I'm going to improve, how I'm going to add to the room and help learn to be a part of this O-line room and kind of do all that. So that's my main focus, and anything else is kind of in the past for me at this point.
So Ben Johnson, I say that name, everybody's face lights up all of a sudden, lighting up scoreboards. What's your impression of his offense?
Yeah, I haven't watched Detroit super closely, just because divisionally didn't play him a ton. But yeah, you hear all this stuff, and then in my few interactions with him, he's awesome. Seems like a great guy. Seems like very tons of attention to detail, tons of energy and motivation for this. So that's all really exciting and things that you want to hear about. And I've heard nothing but good things from the people that I know well that have crossed over with him. And so it's really exciting to play for a coach like that.
The first thing I feel is passion. He's dialed in and ready to go. And I think every player appreciates a coach and a staff that carries that emotion into the locker room, onto the field during practice and so forth. Don't you agree?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And it trickles through the building.
Describe the type of player you are. Everyone else can describe what you are from the outside in. What would you say the type of player you are?
Yeah, I feel like the things that I kind of identify with and focus on the most are the front end stuff. So my preparation, I want to be the most prepared, and that's physically, mentally, all those things. So stacking the deck in my favor by doing everything I can control on my own. So when the game comes, I've checked a few boxes. So someone who's prepared, someone who's going to play hard every play, someone who's going to give their best effort to improve and learn and try to not make the same mistake twice. Someone who's a good communicator and is going to work to facilitate what's going on with the O-line and communicate it with anybody who needs to know. And then someone who's just going to play every down like it's their last and give their best effort.
So the interior has been redefined here in Chicago. when you heard about Joe Tooney on one side, Jonah Jackson on the other. How excited does that make you to be a front wall for this up-and-coming quarterback by the name of Caleb Williams?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very exciting. And I've been fortunate enough to play with some great players in the past and learn a ton from them. So I feel really grateful that I kind of have a new batch of guys that I can learn even more from, learn different things from, and build those relationships with them. So I think it's a great challenge and something I'm really looking forward to, and I think it's going to be fun.
We got a bunch of Hall of Famers here in this town, right? Mm-hmm. Most in the NFL. But there's a bunch of centers, even back to the 1920s and 1940s. Clyde Bulldog Turner in the Hall of Fame. Jay Hilgenberg was a 7-time consecutive Pro Bowl as an undrafted free agent out of Iowa. And Olin Kreutz, outstanding 6-time Pro Bowler as well. So the center position in Bears history carries some pretty good significance. How cool is that to play for a franchise with that kind of history, even at that position?
Yeah, no, it's great. And I feel like I do really well, and I'm very motivated by having things to aspire to and people to chase and all that. So, yeah, you hear those names, and they're absolutely incredible players, and I'd love to be able to take little bits of knowledge from them and kind of add it to my own game. So, yeah, it's awesome to have a legacy like that to chase.
And do you like the concept of working with a veteran offensive line coach like Dan Rochar? He's done it for a long time.
Yeah. Same theme that's kind of running through this whole thing is like there's just so many people to learn from and so many people with great expertise, and I feel like he's another one that's added to that that's going to make this better.
What other pieces are you excited to work with here? I'm assuming everybody.
Yeah. I mean, today's been my first day, so I can't even begin to say I know who's in the building or who's on the roster or anything like that. So I got to learn a lot of new faces to me.
You come into the league with a bit of an advantage as a player, being the son of a player. Your dad played for the San Francisco 49ers and has been a coach in high school and the NFL level with the Falcons. Did that do a lot for you to make that transition and just follow in his footsteps, so to speak? Yeah.
No, it was great. He's always done an excellent job of separating the dad and the coach aspects. But yeah, having someone with shared perspective that understands these things that I'm going through, that for me, they feel like the first time and they feel like a huge deal or a huge issue. And I can go to him and he's like, yeah, I remember doing that. I remember experiencing the same things. So having someone you can relate to like that has been really invaluable for me. And then also just a fun to have a fan that truly understands what's going on so you can talk shop with.
Chris Dalman, the football player, Chris Dalman, the dad. What's the best advice in each scenario has he given you in your life?
It might be kind of one piece, but I feel like he's always emphasized how important just like the daily traits and how you're doing things. And so whether it's school, being a partner, a friend, or a football player, whatever it is, you really are only what you're exhibiting daily. And I feel like he did that by example and showing like what hard work looks like on a daily basis, what being a good father looks like on a daily basis, and all those things. So just taking that with me and knowing that I have to show what I'm about every day to be able to be who I want to be.
And lastly, let you go. Best thing you want to tell Bears fans right now? We'll give them a little message from Drew Dalman, the new starting center for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, just that we're going to do absolutely everything we can to stack the deck in our favor and work hard and prepare and kind of do all the little things right so that when the game comes, it's about performance and execution and aggression and speed and not, worrying and thinking too much and all that. So we're going to do everything we can to lay the foundation well right now.
Appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Because of time constraints, could not ask him questions about Grady Jarrett, but what he said at the podium with Bears reporters, Jarrett's the guy who exhibits what a pro is every day, takes care of his body, studies hard, and you get a feel for how important it is in the locker room. An incredible player, incredible guy, and they'll be practicing against each other again. Drew Dalman says he made him look silly dozens of times, but an invaluable resource, letting them know also about their tells and tendencies on the offensive line. So a savvy player, and on the defensive side of the ball, that can be a resource for offensive linemen for the Bears here in 2025 and beyond. Time to take a break here on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
This is ESPN Chicago, WNVP, WTBC, HD2 Chicago, a Good Karma Brands radio station.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy with Tom Thayer, Jeff Joniak, and Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio, the former Bears quarterback. Okay, so listening to Drew Dalman, enjoyed speaking with him up at Hallis Hall earlier today. What are we getting here? Because as he was described by Grady Jackson yesterday, smart, big, strong, and quick with hat speed to reach the nose tackle, the three technique. Hat speed. What's he referring to there?
You know, the center nowadays, they have a variety of assignments inside the offense itself. So if you're facing a guy directly over the head of you, you got to show that you have the ability to snap with power, get your hands inside, win the point of attack, and create that separation for a running back to read or to secure your pass blocking assignment. Say you have an even man line where the center's uncovered. Now you're looking at two defensive tackles. And say you have one that's on the head up to the outside shoulder of the right guard, and you know you're having a zone blocking play that way, and you still have to have the ability to have speed to snap and reach athleticism to get to the outside. And that's one thing when you look at Dalman, you look at all the requirements of a center in the modern day offense. To have the power to play a guy over the head of you, to make sure that you can reach the difficulty of the running game when you're playing an even man line, or then your responsibilities with a wide variety in the passing game. Because if you're uncovered, you're moving to the right or the left and you're helping, or you're going to a linebacker. If you're covered, you got to make sure that you can hold up against any type of bull rush and any type of attack on the center that they're going to try to have. So that's the most interesting thing about Dalman is he's got that variety arsenal that he can use against everything that's asked of him.
And Jim, he's physical and doesn't mind a little trash talk, according to a guy who would know, and that would be Grady Jarrett.
Yeah, Grady Jarrett is a great player, but Tom's right. That's probably one of the most difficult blocks to make is that reach block, especially when you're snapping the ball with your right hand and you've got to make that reach block to your right. And I also think, he's got the nimble feet. Say a lot of teams run those mug looks where maybe the center at the snap of the ball, he's working to his right, but then maybe there'll be a snatch blitz by the backside backer, and he's got to come off and maybe help out in those situations. I remember when Olin Kreutz, he used to pop out and even, pick up a nickel blitz. So I think Drew Dalman has the ability because he's got nimble feet, and we know the style of offense that they run, and they ran the football really well where he comes from. And I think that type of mentality is going to help out. But he's very, very quick on his feet, can make all those blocks that are required, and that's why he was rated the highest center in free agency. He really has worked himself into a really good player.
Too, Jim and Jeff, is certainty of protection. When you have a center that's been around the league and he's seen every type of blitz or all the pressures that can be offered to you, and he has the ability after he hears in the huddle to go to the line of scrimmage and take that thinking away from Caleb. Now Drew identifies the responsibility. Everybody knows where they're going, and then Caleb is immediately alerted to where the vulnerability of the protection is. So I think that's super beneficial, and it takes seconds away from the quarterback having to think and identify, and gives the center the opportunity to get all blockers, all offensive linemen, tight end, and running backs all on the same page immediately.
Here's our friend Matt Bowen, who analyzes all this in free agency for ESPN.com. Technician, athletic, easy mover, wins with assignment and leverage, good fit for the zone run game under Ben Johnson. Registered a pass block win rate of 95.1% in 2024. That's excellent there down in Atlanta for Drew Dalman. All right, let's now flip it to the defensive line. So we talk about some of this now. Also talked to Dayo Odengbo earlier today. The defensive additions of Grady Jarrett at the three technique, the veteran presence, the fire he plays with, and then this 25-year-old, really everything's in front of him. He's got the body that you would love as an outside edge rusher who can also kick inside, and did so with the Colts, and still, working on reaching his potential. But I believe he had 37 combined sacks and pressures the last 2 years. That's a pretty good number, pressuring the quarterback. Jim, we'll start with you on the impact of both of these gentlemen in the rotation of what already is a defensive line that has guys like Montez Sweat and Javon Dexter Sr., obviously.
Yeah, well, first I'm going to talk about Grady Jarrett. I remember interviewing Dabo Sweeney, where he played in college for Clemson. Dabo gives him high praise. He said if he were to ever start a football team, the first player he would draft is Grady Jarrett. Because like you said, Jeff, this guy gets down and dirty. He's a good leader, and he doesn't have to talk a lot. This guy just goes to work every single day. And he's obviously overcome significant injury with the ACL, but this is a guy that you want to build your football team around guys like Grady Jarrett and what he stands for. You know, as for Dale, like you said, I think he's an ascending player. So if you can get 20 sacks from your two outside guys, you're cooking with gas. You're cooking with gas. And again, if you go look, like Tom said, the teams that make it to the Super Bowl or the teams that make it all the way to the championship game, they're normally going to lead the league in sacks. I mean, there is that sack total means something in the NFL. And everybody says, oh, yeah, it's just about pressuring the quarterback. But when you sack a quarterback, it sends a message. One is demoralizing to the opponent, and bad things happen. You got sack strip fumbles, things like that happen. And that's why those teams that really are high in the sack totals are typically the teams that are in the postseason and normally playing in the championship game.
You know, let's talk about the game itself, because when you talk about the offensive line, you talk about necessary reps. And so you're expected to go in there and play every snap of every game throughout the regular season. When you're talking about the defensive lineman, you got to get into a healthy rotation. And whatever the predetermined amount of snaps, and sometimes it can't be predetermined, every one of those snaps have to be full speed, and you have to be able to do what's expected of you. Is it a pass rushing down, then get to the quarterback? Is it a first down, run stopping down, then stop the running back? If there are 70 snaps per game, then these defensive linemen, they got to give me 30 good, quality, hard-fought, physical snaps.
67% of the snaps in Atlanta last season for Grady Jarrett. As an example, the Eagles, as a reference point, only had one defensive lineman do that. That speaks to their depth and the rotation. It happened to be the big fella, Jalen Carter. They only want to do that. But the fact that he overcame that ACL and came back right ready for training camp. He missed 8 games in the prior season of 23. Again, he talked about it yesterday. He just loves this. He loves playing this game. He loves being here. It's different. He's an Atlantan. I don't know if that's the proper way to say it, but he's a Georgian, and he played his whole career in Atlanta, so this is a big change for the former 2-time Pro Bowler. But I think what he's going to bring in, and I texted somebody I know in Atlanta, I said he instantly makes the locker room not only a fun place, but a better place for a football player. The mindset that he will bring every day to the meeting room, to the practice field, and on Sundays is going to spread like wildfire.
Look, when you look at a team, Jim, with no captains on the offense and defensive line, and then you bring in the offensive lineman that you have, and then you bring in a guy that has the attitude that Grady Jarrett has, as it was evident in his podium visit yesterday, those are two guys, like Jeff says, their role inside the locker room is going to be so important from the minute they get there. And so I'm excited Ryan Poles kind of has reached out to a couple alpha males that are going to be immediate contributors in that locker room.
Grady Jarrett will earn it just with what he does. And like you said, Jeff, I don't think that guy needs an alarm clock to show up for work. That guy is ready to go every single day. And the players see it. It's how he practices, how he prepares. When he comes in the locker room, it's for a purpose, and that's to get ready for the day of what he's going to do on Sunday. And it's every single day. He's punching his card, and there's, he knows the work that goes into it. And that example does spread like wildfire. You want to be like Grady Jarrett. Other guys, hey, man, the coach just got to do this. Just follow Grady. Just do what he's doing. If you do what he's doing, you're going to be just fine. Because that message will be sent every single day, and every player in that locker room, everybody in that organization will see it and witness the work that guy puts in.
152 games, 36.5 sacks from that interior spot, 77 tackles for loss. He also has the all-time record, as he pointed out yesterday, for pressures with the Atlanta Falcons. The funny thing is, and Jim, I know you at every Super Bowl, so you had that 3-sack Super Bowl against Tom Brady, and it reminds me of the conversation we had last week with Greg Cosell from the Combine when he said that Brady told him that 93 to 95% of all sacks is the quarterback's fault. Here, Brady got sacked 3 times by Gary. I'm not taking a thing away from Grady. He earned those 3 sacks of Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
He earns it every day, man. He's a pack a lunch, bring a flashlight type of guy, and he just doesn't stop. He's one of those all-day suckers that, There's just no denying him. He's going to work his way into earning everything that he gets, and he should be proud of that number. I mean, when, you got great players. I remember when I played in Atlanta, guys like Jesse Tuggle and Biscuit and those guys, Grady Jarrett is up there with them. I mean, Tommy Nobis, who should probably be in the Hall of Fame as a linebacker, Grady is the guy that frees everybody up on the back end, but it all starts and stops with him. He's the spark plug that gets everybody going.
Funny you bring up Jesse Tuggle. That is Grady Jarrett's dad.
Yeah.
And he refers to
fall far from a tree.
He refers to Ray Lewis as his uncle, even though they're not related. He loves Ray Lewis.
He's been around greatness every day. He knows what it looks like.
We take a break here on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
This is Bears Weekly with the voice of the Bears for 24 years, Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. With Tom Thayer and Jim Miller, two former Chicago Bears, I'm Jeff Joniak here on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network. We touched on it in the last segment. Tom, you brought up Joe Thuney, his impact on the locker room. Jim, the impact of Grady Jarrett, and I'm sure there will be others, including others that have been here that maybe now with a little more seasoning can emerge as leaders. But just the addition of those two gentlemen alone, what will that do for the locker room?
For the locker room, it's going to see how professionals prepare on a daily basis, from OTAs all the way through the regular season, and how they prepare mentally in the meeting rooms and how they take it out physically to the practice field. And then if you have a player that's on the verge of kind of needing his learning curve sped up a little bit, you're talking about conversations of experience. You have a guy that played left tackle, but he's an all-pro left guard. So he can talk about every single position out there from tight end to center. And when you have veterans in here that of all this, the leadership qualities that they brought in the last couple of days, it expedites the learning curve of every young guy coming in here to compete, but it makes the offensive line immediately better. And you get an understanding of what this offense can offer, and then you're going to have some important conversations between offensive lineman and quarterback. And I think that does a lot to help a quarterback's confidence and an understanding of what he's saying and in the huddle and how it pertains to everybody in front of him.
Yeah, I love what Tom just said there. Olin Kreutz used to challenge me all the time. We would see who would get the blitzes right, who would get the calls right, who would get the blitzes wrong. And Olin be like, hey, man, I got you there. You're slacking a little bit, Miller. He challenged me. He challenged me, and I challenged him. And that's going to be important for Drew Dalman, for, Joe Thuney, who knows he's been around greatness in Patrick Mahomes. And Joe Thuney can say, hey, Caleb, maybe this will help you. This is what Patrick does in this situation. But I think Drew Dalman has really got to be a key, because he's really got to help Caleb with his protections. Caleb has to know them inside and out, and he has to know how Drew Dalman is going to call certain calls, because they've got to be married up. They have to think the same way. Caleb should be going to the line of scrimmage. I don't care if he's in shotgun saying, hey, here's the defensive front, here's the backers. I already know. We're doing this. They're showing nickel blitz. Hey, guys, we're making a Ringo call. We're making a Ringo call, and Drew Dalman, and they should all be calling it out so that they're in unison, so that they're thinking the same, where everybody's on the same page. It sounds simple, because it is. If you get a hat on the hat, you have a chance. You have a chance. And I think if Drew Dalman really challenges Caleb to really know his protections inside and out, and every day when they're in blitz period, hey, man, I see it this way. This is why we should call it this way. Here's the best scenario of how it'll work out. Maybe you got to recall the mic, and they got to get on the same page there. Hey, guys, we're going to make a Louis call here. We're going to go left. This guy's say number 55's the mic. We're making him the mic now. Hey, we got a 5 down, 5 down, 5 down. Everybody should be calling it out, and Caleb has to see it where eventually he's calling it out. And he's leading the offense, because that way he's thinking faster.
So let me break down some of that language, the QB language. So are we talking about lefty Louie, righty tighty? Is this what you're telling me?
Yeah. So if I'm making a Ringo call,
what's Ringo? What's Ringo? What's a Ringo call?
Yeah, Ringo, I'm going to slide the line right.
Okay.
Louis, you're going to slide the line left. Or I just, like when I say a 5 down, say if they throw a 5 down look, meaning another defensive lineman comes in over the center, 5 down, 5 down. That means the 5 offensive linemen have the 5 down linemen. We could be you could be facing a 3-4 defense. Well, guess what? We're facing a 3-4 where typically your guards are going to fan. They're going to fan out, and Tom can get into that. But maybe you make a down guy there. Maybe you've got your 4-3 rules where, hey, man, I'm going to make this backer down. 56 is down. I now have made it a 4-3 front. Okay? Even though we're facing a 3-4, I have made it a 4-3 front by making 56 down, and now we've got our 4-3 rules. Okay, so if we're in 62 protection and it's 4-3 rules, and I know my right guard is uncovered, if they bring too strong, I'm hot. I'm hot. If they bring Mike Sam, I'm hot. And he has to know all these things. They have to make all these calls, and that way you're speeding up. You're speeding up your play. That means you identified the front. You've corrected any problem areas. Let's roll, boys. It's time to play some football. All the maintenance is out of the way. Now let's go get it done with what we need to do to execute, because I've identified everything and how we need to block up this front in order to have success.
Tom, are you ready to block for Jim Miller? Because I am.
Yeah. If you listen, it's funny how the language is a little bit different on every offensive line, but everything means the same thing. You can go Ringo and you can go Louis. We went east and west. East was to the right and west was to the left. We had a variety of where we could go up if someone forgot the snap count on the line of scrimmage. We could get some secret call words to where, Bortzy could say, what's a count? What's a count? And, you could, blue. So, you could have red, white, and blue as 1, 2, 3. So that's kind of the neat thing inside an offensive line, especially an offensive line that has years of experience together. Every year they kind of have these conversations, how to expand the language that they're going to have on the line of scrimmage, because a lot of times you go up there and you make these fake calls in the defensive line think, oh man, I'm reading this. I know exactly what they're saying. You really don't. So it's about the experiences that these guys have together that, Joe Thuney can maybe introduce something that they get in Kansas City or the Rams or the Falcons, So there's going to be a lot of that kind of a neat, subway conversation that the offensive line will have on the practice field and in the meeting room.
Let me ask you one more question in this vein. How long does it take, because I keep hearing this over the years, you want your quarterback to see the defense through the eyes of the play caller, in this case Ben Johnson, and that also goes to the center as well. So how long does that take for a center, quarterback, play caller to see all see the same thing, down in and down out?
I think months into a season that they can get it, but the luxury is being in front of the same terminology for a couple of years. Yeah. Because if you can sit there and Ben Johnson can say 2 words and then Caleb can finish the sentence in the play call, or the offensive line hears the formation call from the quarterback's voice and they know exactly if he's calling the right formation or the wrong formation, I think it's beneficial. The more reps that you get together, the more time under terminology, the better it makes every position.
Ben Johnson is going to install this offense here this spring during the OTAs, and it's just the base stuff. It's the base. To get to the second level of where you want to be, look at his time in Detroit. That offense, look at it this year. It was really humming, right? It was really humming because they've had a couple years experience with Ben Johnson as a play caller. Nowhere near. Remember when Dan Campbell took over calling plays? It was a struggle. I mean, the head coach took it over, and he obviously then said, hey, at the end of the year, I'm going to defer this to Ben Johnson. So they had they had their base under their belt, and then Ben Johnson started to take it to the next level. And so you're creating, like I said, that Encyclopedia Britannica, where then by year 2, hey, man, that's a bridge you've already crossed. Hey, man, we've already crossed this bridge before. This is nothing. Let's move on to something more difficult and wait till you see those looks, and they'll keep on adding to that Rolodex as they see that as they roll along.
Couple other nuggets before we move on to a commercial break here. Jonah Jackson, I love what Sean McVay said about him just with his 1 year in L.A. Called him a stud human, stud physically, mentally tough, blue-collar guy, great in the locker room, an all-time great dude. That's from other people in Detroit. So there's a lot to love about Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney. You know, Tom brought up that stat about the Matthews family, the great football-playing Matthews family, 77 years of experience, 1 Super Bowl win. This guy's got 4 Super Bowl wins and 6 Super Bowl trips in his 9 years. Jim, I brought this up on our Bears Etc. podcast with Tom this week. His career record is 125-42. That includes playoffs. A 75% win percentage. A magna cum laude in college, a Campbell Trophy finalist. That's like the academic Heisman. He was the president of his senior high school class, an MBA from Indiana. We got a smart football player here and a guy who's durable and tenacious. So I love the package.
I bring it up all the time. They signed him as a guard for tackle money for a reason. You know, this guy is a really good player. And, you know, believe it or not, former Chicago Bear Andy Heck, he coaches the O-line down there in Kansas City. And so I've talked to Andy at just how, you know, his football IQ, just how smart Joe Thuney is. And, you know, I think he showed his versatility kicking out the tackle. And it didn't put him in the best position, but he's going to do what's good for the best for his football team. And so I think he's really going to help Caleb Williams a lot with maybe teach him some things that maybe how Kansas City did it, how Patrick Mahomes specifically handled certain situations, and that's going to help the growth of Caleb Williams. And it doesn't hurt, Jeff, when you wake up out of bed every morning, you just roll out of bed and say, hey, 75% wins. Yeah, I think I'm going to win again today.
Yeah.
You know, I plan on winning again today. And he's got that attitude about him that he just wakes up a winner.
And that's a belief. That the locker room here absolutely need a belief that you're going to go out there, we're going to win. We're going to win today. We got to take a break so we can win. That's Tom Thayer, Jim Miller, Jeff Joniak at ESPN 1000, the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy. Jeff and Tom and Jim Miller, as we wrap things up on our show, we'll look into the division here a little bit, but I've loved the conversation and the passion by which you guys are grabbing the baton here, really, from Ryan Poles to Ben Johnson to the new additions, everybody. This is what the building feels like. There's a lot of fire going on. So let's look at the division champion, the Detroit Lions. Re-signed Derek Barnes. Marcus Davenport re-signed as well. Those are the big ones. They invested 3 years, $48 million in DJ Reed, the veteran cornerback. And other than that, quiet. Re-signed Dan Skipper as well. Let's talk Lions football. You know, very few holes on that football team, but they lost 2 key coordinators. That is going to be the impact right there.
You're right, Jeff. You know, I understand the personnel that they brought aboard. It's the coaches they lost, and how replaceable are they in such immediacy? They're fortunate they have the quarterback that stayed there, and he understands the system that he just ran, but I don't know if it's going to be the next system he runs. And it's the same thing on the defensive side of the ball. And I think when you look at Detroit, as much conversation there was about Hutchinson, he's almost like a free agent because he was injured all of last year, even though he's had the success that he's had. But you can't ignore the fact that he's coming back.
Yeah, they lost a lot of continuity. It wasn't just the coordinators. I think, you know, the Bears got their share of coaches, and then Aaron Glenn took anything left in the cupboard over to the New York Jets. So with, you know, J.T. Barrett and Antoine Randall L. arriving in Chicago, their coaching staff was rated significantly. With Hutchinson coming back from a very significant injury, sounds like he's ahead of schedule, but will he be the same player? And they still have to find guys opposite him. And Marcus Davenport really hasn't lived up to the billing at this point, so Detroit has a lot more work to do.
Minnesota's done a lot, and there's all sorts of rumors floating out there about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Jones back. Jonathan Allen, though, coming aboard at defensive tackle. 3 years, $60 million. Also, Javon Hargrave, and then Will Fries at offensive guard there, 5 years, $88 million. Ryan Kelly will be their new center. Those are some big ones right there. Byron Murphy re-signed at corner, 3 years, $66 million. They did a lot. And then there's the J.J. McCarthy angle.
I'm kind of a little suspicious about J.J. McCarthy injury because we don't know a lot about it. Why is his recovery taking so long? And are they just kind of blowing a smokescreen evaluating his recovery, or is he ready to go day one of OTAs and he's going to take over that position? And that's not necessarily going to be the case if you do bring Aaron Rodgers aboard, because Aaron Rodgers isn't going to come here to play backup to J.J. McCarthy, especially when you have a super talented tight end, Aaron Jones, re-signing, and then two of the best wide receivers in the division. And that's what the coaching staff there is going to want to take advantage of. And you bring in a new guard and a new center to help solidify a pretty decent offensive line. Allen, I think he's a really good defensive tackle. Hargrave, I don't know about because he signed an enormous free agent deal when he left, I think, Philadelphia to go to San Francisco. Is Harrison Smith coming back? He's another guy that's a super intelligent player, but, now what you're talking about a 36 or 37-year-old safety.
Yeah. I think for Minnesota, those are good signings in the trenches because if you look at them down the stretches where Sam Darnold has had his worst games, their O&D line kind of got their fannies handed to them. And that led to some of those turnovers. So they want to get better in the trenches. Minnesota, a lot of Minnesota fans, at least when they call into SiriusXM, they cannot stand Garrett Bradbury, their center, who I think is a good center, but he was only scheduled to make $3.5 million a year. They wanted to upgrade with Ryan Kelly, give him a bump in pay. He gets a 2-year, $18 million deal, and they pay the guard Will Fries because they're losing one of their guards in free agency. The D tackles speak for themselves, but I think that's really what it came down to Minnesota. Their playoff games, or at least their last two games of the year, Week 18 and in the playoffs, their trenches, they kind of got their fannies handed to them, and that's where they wanted to invest their money.
Green Bay, quiet so far. Isaiah McDuffie, a re-sign. Their kicker, Brandon McManus. Aaron Banks comes aboard, though, 4-year, $77 million deal from the 49ers. And Nate Hobbs, 4-year, $48 million at corner. So they're a draft-driven team. And so they're pretty solid with their youth, and they're going to continue to bang the drum for the draft. So that's the Green Bay Packers. Any thought on that real quick before we take off?
Well, I was kind of surprised they lost A.J. Dillon. He went and signed with Philadelphia. So their running back position gets a little bit thinner, and they have that battering ram type of a guy who can block and carry in short yardage situations. Josh Jacobs, the guy they brought in last year, he's got to, still continue to carry the load with some other teammates he has there. Green Bay, I don't know if we ever expect them to make a splash signing just because they never do, and they're content with the guys they brought in. Aaron Banks, I don't know. I don't know if he's kind of a reach because he struggled through his rookie year and he's gotten better since. Give that kind of money to an interior offensive lineman in Green Bay. I don't know if they overreached or, that was the best option he was offered and San Francisco was willing to let him go.
Yeah, they're going to lose Jair Alexander. So Nate Hobbs to me is a really good signing. What I'm waiting for them to do, they need to land an ex-receiver. The young man who they drafted out of North Dakota State, I believe is Christian Watson. He's been a slow roll, man. There was rumors that they were going to trade for DK Metcalf, but they need to add an ex-receiver. I like Jaden Reed, their kid out of Michigan State who they drafted. Dobbs and the other players have really come on, but Watson, their former first-round pick, he has been a dud right now. So I expect them to add a surefire, solid ex-receiver, or they have to draft a surefire, solid ex-receiver, somebody who's a true coverage dictator, because that's where really Jordan Love has had issues and why he's maybe had a couple of interceptions. And I think a surefire X would clean up a lot of the reads for Jordan Love.
Before the draft even happens, the NFC North is still powerful. That's all I got to say. And it's going to be very interesting as the season rolls on here in 2025 to address all these matchups. You got to win your division. All right, that's going to do it for us, fellas. Nice job. Thanks to everyone for listening. The executive producer of the Bears Radio Network is Eric Ostrowski. Thanks to our producers, Kendra Smith, Dan Briley, and Jordan Tredup, and our guest, Drew Dalman. For Tom Thayer and Jim Miller, I'm Jeff Joniak. This has been Bears Weekly on the radio home of the Chicago Bears, ESPN Chicago. Please enjoy the ACC basketball tournament coming up in progress here on ESPN 1000 and the Bears Radio Network. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Chicago Bears Network presentation of Bears Weekly, hosted by the mayor of Bearsville, Jeff Joniak, and Surfmaster Tom Thayer. Podcasts are available on the Chicago Bears official app. Brought to you by Verizon and Apple Podcasts. Bears Weekly has been brought to you by Miller Lite.